Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Anime with Alvin. Today I'll be making Rengoku's Bento from Demon Slayer, packed to the brim with delicious things. As you can see, this box is empty. It's our job to fill it up. Let's get started. One of the components in the bento box seems to be a pan-fried tofu. So we're going to start with 1 pound of extra firm tofu, wrap it in a couple layers of paper towel, and use a cast iron to put some weight on it. This will press a lot of the extra water out, and the paper towel serves as a blanket for that. We're starting with this first because this will take some time, probably 30 minutes or so. We move on to our next component. The bento box also seems to feature grilled scallion, but not the small version, the Tokyo scallion version. So we have ourselves some large Tokyo negi, which I'm going to take and cut into nice thick spears on a pretty heavy diagonal bias in order to increase the surface area, presentation, and deliciousness. We definitely don't need this entire thing for our bento box, but they came in a massive bunch. So this is what I like to do with excess scallions at home. This definitely works for the smaller version as well. But before we get on to that, I do need to cut up these onions for the bento. Once we set the pieces dedicated to our bento box to the side, I'm going to take the rest of our giant scallions and just roughly chop them up into small chunks. Don't need to be pretty, just slightly broken down. We move to the stove. Into a huge large pan as big as we can find goes in all of our scallions along with a couple glugs of sesame oil. Even though toasted sesame oil is a pretty strong flavor, as you cook it over fire, it will lose its intense aroma. So I like to use it when I'm cooking something for quite a long time. I'm just frying up these scallions a little bit until they get charred and pretty brown and crispy along the edges. And this is where things get pretty fun. Since the goal is to use up leftovers, I try to look for pretty much anything that fits the following 4 categories: spice, salt, sugar, and acid. For our spice, we have some chili oil that I found around the Babish studio. We're just gonna throw in a couple tablespoons of that, continue to saute until this gets fragrant. Then I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of sugar, just caramelize that a bit. Once the residue nearing the pan is getting almost close to burnt, we're gonna add in a couple glugs of soy sauce. I don't really have measurements for this because when cooking with leftovers, usually I adjust this kind of stuff to taste. And finally, for our acid, I'm adding in a couple tablespoons of Chinese black vinegar, but I'm sure lemon juice, regular vinegar, or any sort of acidic component would work well here. And because I did add a lot of soy sauce, I do like to add a bit more sugar to balance that out. Soy sauce and sugar are pretty good friends on the scale, as long as the scale is even. Once this has reduced a little bit and looks pretty good, we're gonna take this off the heat and go over to a bowl. Now at this point, this would probably be a really good condiment for, meats and rice if you wanted to leave them in chunks, but I like to take it a step further. My secret weapon of choice is an immersion blender, so I'll use that and turn these chunks of scallions and sauce into one heavily smooth paste. What we end up with is somewhat of a chili soy scallion sauce, balanced with chili oil, soy sauce, sugar, and black vinegar. After tasting this does need a little bit more sugar to counter that saltiness. I really like turning leftover scallions or onions or even shallots into a sauce because it extends the shelf life and can pretty much go on anything. Found some random pita bread we had lying around in the fridge, toasted it over an open flame, trying not to burn it, and just as a snack to the crew because they've been working hard today, chopped it up and just dipped it in the sauce. It's pretty good. Kind of like a caramelized onion dip, but not onion. This goes really well with eggs, white rice, meat. Pretty much it's one of those put on whatever you want and it'll probably taste good. But okay, back to the actual recipe. Roughly 60% of a bento box usually is rice. So we're gonna cook some short grain rice. 2 cups of rice in a rice cooker, magic. At this point, our tofu has been pressing for about 30 minutes and a lot of water has come out. Oh, hey, look, it's the Babish logo. That's pretty cool. Oh, dang it was on the paper towel, not the tofu. That's disappointing. Well, despite that negative turn of events, we're gonna go ahead and cut this tofu into nice little strips. Into a large pan over medium-high heat, we're gonna use a little bit of cooking oil and pan fry these tofu strips. There's a reason we want these on the drier and chewier side as well. Once these are golden brown, they exit the pan onto a paper towel, and in that same pan goes in our nicely cut scallion spears. Just to char them a little bit with a little bit of salt until they get a nice color, and once the rawness is broken all the way in the middle, these get removed as well. Into the same large pan we begin by constructing our sauce. In goes half a cup of soy sauce, half a cup of mirin, half cup of sake, and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Once our sauce has started to simmer, we're going to add in all of our tofu. The tofu acts as a bit of a sponge to absorb back the sauce into itself. Once the color has been sufficiently soaked throughout the tofu, we're going to remove those one more time. In go our 2 onions that we have sliced earlier. The onions are going to take a couple minutes to simmer and break down. So while that happens, we're going to soft boil 2 eggs in a hot pot of boiling water for about 7 minutes. Once the onions have broken down, I'm adding in 1 cup of water to dilute the sauce a little bit, and then we're going to cook 12 ounces of thinly sliced beef. You can buy this pre-sliced. It's usually under hot pot meat or something of the sort, or you can slice it yourself if you're good with a knife. In this case, I'm using ribeye because, well, that tastes good. Once the meat has been barely just cooked through, we're going to take this off the heat and plunge our 2 eggs into an ice bath to stop the cooking. Now it is time to fill up this bento box. We're going to pack rice approximately 60% of the way up the height of the bento box and proceed by stuffing as much of this beef mixture into the bento box as we can. In my experience with bento boxes, sometimes there's too much rice and not enough meat, so I like to do the opposite. Once all the goodies have been exited from the pan, we're going to go back over to the stove and reduce the remaining sauce into a more of a syrup or glaze consistency. We're going to carefully lay down a few slices of our tofu lengthwise, pack that in, arrange a couple of our grilled scallions right on top of that in a spear-like formation. Go ahead and cut this soft-boiled egg open after cracking and peeling it. Great success. And perch our soft-boiled egg right on top. Then our reduced glaze gets carefully spooned over the beef so that it can soak through all those little cracks and crevices and eventually make its way down to the bed of rice underneath. And the final garnish, a few slices of pickled sushi ginger. I'm sure you could make this if you really had the time, but honestly, the store-bought stuff is pretty good. Please excuse the mess. It appears there is a crack in our bento box in the corner and it has slowly started to drip out. But I present to you our version of Rengoku's bento box from Demon Slayer, heavily inspired by the Japanese dish gyudon or gyunabe. We have made similar dishes like this on the show before, but it is still always a joy to eat this. Yep, delicious. We just go ahead and get some more of the stuff in here. Try it one more time. Delicious. But unlike Rengoku, I don't have the stomach of the fire Hashira, so I will have to employ my fellow teammates Steve and Rachel to help eat this. And I don't know about you guys, but after eating this, I could go take on a couple of demons.